It's the Morning Brew with Elle Dawson and Gillian Robertson. Brought to you by Fight Bananas.
Still muted. Sorry, guys. I'm bad. Thought I was pushing all the buttons, but I wasn't. Good morning. We are not muted anymore. Happy Sunday. Welcome to the Sunday Morning Brew with yours truly, Elle Dawson and Gillian the Savage Robertson. How you doing, G?
I'm doing all right. I'm always happy when there's an early fight card. I get to go to bed early, so that's always a good day. Wasn't the best fight card all around. Wasn't the most exciting fight card, but regardless, it was something for me to watch all day. There were some good fights. The main event really lived up to it. It was a great fight to watch. But other than that, it was here and there. There was few in between that really shined.
I agree. It was definitely not my favorite fight night that we've had recently, especially following last week's that we both gave like solid, I think like A minus, B plus too. Like that was one of the best fight night cards we've had in a long time. So I'm kind of with you. The main card was good. Like the main card was really solid. There were a couple of prelim fights that I thought would be more exciting. I will say the star of the prelims for me was Kavanaugh. Like, I think his stock went up absolutely massively, losing the first round, coming back, and just his willingness to fight and just be gritty. And what a fun flyweight fight too.
Oh yeah. And I don't know what it was about last night. It seemed like a lot of the first rounds were very, very slow. And again, in the Kavanaugh fight, it was the same thing. It seemed like a very slow first round. He definitely lost it, but also like there wasn't really a lot going on in general. Like I think he got caught with that. It was like a spinning back elbow in that round. And like that was the only thing that was really happened. He got that cut, and then the rest of the fight, the next 2 rounds, he kind of just took over. And I feel like once he opened up, he really showed what his capabilities are. He really showed a well-rounded fighter, and it was real. That fight and Duncan and Vucinic.
Oh, so that was on the main card, right? That was the first fight on the main card. Second fight. All right, carry on.
Well, I was going to say that one, the Duncan Vucinic and the main event, I think were the only 3 that really like stood out to me. The Gunner fight and Kevin Holland was definitely entertaining as well. But I'm like, those 3 were the only ones that I was like, wow, these are good fights.
I agree with you. And I was super excited for the co-main event. I was super excited for Nathaniel Wood and Morgan Charest. And it wasn't like, Charest versus Wood wasn't, I'm not going to say it was boring because it wasn't boring, but it wasn't what I expected from 2 explosive strikers. If that makes sense, you know?
I don't know why. I feel like I saw a lot of people just fainting in front of each other last night. It's like they were just setting things up, and then never getting to it a lot of the times. I feel like that's what I saw a lot of in that fight too, especially I want to say in the 3rd round, Nathaniel Wood just kind of slowed down a lot, and it felt like just a lot of that, just them both just kind of fainting in front of each other.
No, I agree. Like, I feel like Charest had some moments too where he got Nathaniel Wood against the cage. And then, like you said, he just kind of twitched in front of him and never threw anything. And I was like, you have him in such a good spot, but maybe just, getting dropped, feeling like he couldn't pull the trigger. I'm not sure what happened there, but I agree. I think both of them seemed very hesitant in that fight.
I feel like that was kind of like the tale of the night. Honestly, it was people fainting in front of each other and then one person shooting and holding the other person against the cage, never really successfully getting takedowns, never really doing damage, then going back to fainting in front of each other. And it was like there was multiple fights that just had that pace.
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't know what it was. It was just the vibe of the night, I suppose. But we definitely, before we get into this main event, we will absolutely give Sean Brady his flowers because they are well deserved. We got to talk about your friend, a legend in the UK, Molly McCann, retiring tonight. I honestly have a lot of respect for just how she retired. I have a lot of respect for people who really want to be great. you know? And I think she kind of she can tell that that title run is just, it's out of reach for her at this point. She's getting a little bit older. And I agree with what she said. I think she's got more fights in her. I think there's definitely girls in this division that she can beat, but she didn't feel like her performance was indicative of that greatness that she was after. I have a lot of respect for, going out like that,
Oh yeah, and I understand that 100%. Honestly, I've always said that with like my career and my life. I'm like when I get up to that, like she's 34 now. So I'm like when I get to like 34, 35, I feel like that's when you know if you're going to be champ or not. Yeah, you know at that point. And it's like, do you want to accept the life of a journeyman? Which like if you do, then like all power to you. There's like I love Jim Miller more than anything. I'm like, he's one of the greatest in my book still, has been a journeyman his whole career. And it doesn't make him, I guess, like any lesser of a fighter if he decided to retire at 34 versus retiring. I'm like, I feel like it just really depends what you want out of your career. And obviously for Molly, it was to be champion. It is to be great. And if you are kind of realizing that you're not going to be able to achieve that, I understand the retirement. And even though I don't know if I say that I'm like, oh yeah, I would definitely do that. But then also in that moment, I don't know if I could, because I do love the sport so much. I would think that if I did realize I didn't have it, I'd be fine with being Jim Miller, Cowboy Cerrone, any of those guys. I'm like, they're still the greats in the sport.
So I guess my question is, so you brought up two guys, both they were very big in the lightweight division. I think lightweight, I don't want to say it's easier to be a journeyman at lightweight, but there's so many fighters at lightweight. I feel like there's so many fights for Jim Miller. I wonder if women's strawweight, if you can really be as much of a journeyman and still have like that fan base respect, just because there's so fewer fights in the division for you at that point. I wonder if at that point they start like just using you to build prospects. It can be really difficult. What are your thoughts on like that in your division versus like Jim Miller's?
I feel like, I don't know, I might get hate for saying this. I feel like she's kind of in this position, but Angela Hill, I'm like, she's kind of a journeyman in the sport. I don't see her making another title run at this point. And I feel like she's always going to be in that, like until she retires, she's going to be top 15, but I feel like she's built a good name for herself in the sport and has a lot of, so I'm like, I think it is possible as well.
I like that. That's a great answer. Yeah. And we got to give Alexia Thainara, like, she's very loud. I know Dave was not a fan of her persona during fight week. You had a lot of words on our post-fight show last night, but she could be a contender in this division too. Like, I agree. I don't think this is necessarily this is not going to age poorly for Molly McCann to have lost to this girl. I would say Gillian retiring at 50. Let's go.
Probably, honestly. But just on another note, Molly McCann, one of the purest one of the purest human beings I know, just like outside of being a fighter, just a good person. Obviously, I got to share the cage with her. She was actually almost in my corner once. I ended up getting a food poisoning fight week and had to pull out, but she was with me she fought the week before, then it was like during COVID times. So she decided to stay in Vegas an extra week. It helped me like train all week long. And then I ended up getting food poisoning day of the fight and had to pull out. But so she was supposed to corner me. We've fought on the same card together and she won and I lost. And I just remember it was the night I got TKO'd by Macy Barber. And I was walking back to the hotel and the side door of the hotel opens and she's like, "We've all been there, Gillian, come have a drink." So I'm like, Molly is just really one of the best humans I've ever experienced in life. I absolutely love her more than anything. And I wish her the best retirement.
Yeah, I've never met Molly, but she seems like a wonderful human. Like there's a reason she has built the loyalty and the fan base that she has. It's more than just being from the UK. There's lots of UK fighters, but very few get the love that Molly McCann very clearly deserves. So happy to see her, hopefully move on to some other really great things. We will definitely talk about this fight, Ryan. Don't worry. We will talk about this fight because I know Gillian has a lot to say. But like, let's pull up this comment for a second. Pooja was cheated from the win by not knowing how to defend an armbar. Like, I don't, this was on Pooja. This was not like, how on earth did the ref have anything to do with this? No, this wasn't the ref, guys. Like, this was just bad armbar defense, right? Like, your thoughts. This is your division, Gillian. This is your expertise. I will give you the floor.
So this is another one of those fights where I said the first round was a lot of just like fainting. Bannon had her little karate kick she was throwing, but for the most part, they were just standing in front of each other doing minimal. Like, there wasn't a lot going on in the first round besides the side kicks that Bannon was throwing. And then going into the second round, Pooja was able to land that head kick out of nowhere. And it was a beautiful head kick, but then she ran straight into the guard of someone where if you're not a capable jiu-jitsu fighter, it's probably not a situation you should run into. It's like, I remember watching like earlier fights with Mackenzie Dern. I want to say it was Mackenzie Dern versus Hannah Cyphers, actually. And Hannah drops her and then runs into her guard. And I was like, what are you doing? Like, with opponents like that, you stay out of the guard. If you know you're not a capable jiu-jitsu fighter, you don't engage on the ground. You make her stand back up to you. So I think that's just the poor IQ move on Pooja's part. And then going into the arm bar, I literally was watching it from 10 miles away. Like, she's about to armbar. She's trying to set up an armbar. Like, how could she not see it happening? Then when she was stuck in it, she went back into it deeper.
Yeah.
It was like
elbow clear, it looked like. And
that's what I was like. She looked like she was defending and then went back into it deeper and let herself get armbarred more. So it was just, I think, very poor fight IQ on her part there.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree. Okay, I guess this is the argument. He's saying that she had her TKO'd and he didn't stop the fight. I felt like she was still in it. I mean, she was clearly still in it enough to set up the armbar. If you were the ref, would you have stopped the fight before Shauna Bannon set up the armbar is the question, I suppose.
I guess there was no point where I thought that it should have been stopped. Like, I might need to go back and rewatch it, but I don't think that there was a point where I was like, oh no, why isn't the ref stepping in? It seemed like it was fairly fast. She went for the armbar after they hit the floor.
Yeah, I felt so too. Like, she seemed like, yes, she hit the ground hard, but she still seemed to be recovering it, So I'm fine with how it ended as a fighter and a fan. But I see what you're kind of saying. All right. Ryan says no TKO stoppage at all. I watched it twice. All right. Our resident experts in the comments getting through it. I mean, yeah, but you get hit a lot. Like, you can get hit a lot on the ground. That doesn't mean that the fight needs to be stopped. Like, especially at 115, like, very few people are doing devastating ground and pound from top guard at 115. Like, there are girls that have that, but I think it's more of a rarity in the division than a commonality, right?
Oh, it's a rarity, I feel like, in, I guess, MMA in general. I feel like it's an underdeveloped part of the sport where a lot of underdeveloped part of the sports are all the in-betweens. It's things that aren't straight jiu-jitsu. It's not straight wrestling. It's not straight striking. It's MMA. So it's like, so many people, when they're learning these sports, they're learning it from a jiu-jitsu guy or from a wrestler or from a striker. They haven't necessarily developed these systems for MMA. So nobody knows necessarily how to develop good grip fighting to get off good punches in the guard, or like to establish good position to really get off good ground and pound and do damage from there. So I feel like it's just an underdeveloped part of the sport as a whole.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. And I think, maybe at a higher weight class, 2 to 3 punches. Like, if it's heavyweight, yeah, I understand taking 2 to 3 shots and then being like, all right, that's a TKO. But, like, very rarely, like, clearly she was still in the fight. If she wasn't still in the fight, there wouldn't have been an armbar there, But yeah, it's we've got Where's a comment? I like watching their little Sunday morning review here. Our little show. I'm glad you like our little show. Thanks for being here. We appreciate it. But yeah, I'm with you. I think that this was just like you said, just a bad fight IQ and just not understanding the position that she was in. So it's Dave went on a rampage last night on our post-fight review. And he was like, you guys are going to have to talk about this. But he was like, neither of these girls should be in the UFC. They are not UFC level. And I understand I understand where he's coming from. Like, this is your division. Are you of the mindset that you want there to be less fighters in this division, but they are all of the highest caliber? Or are you more like, we need more bodies in this division? Where are you at with that?
I guess I'm looking at it as a fan more than a fighter. As a fan, I feel like there should be less. I feel like we should only be watching the highest caliber of fighter. And it makes you, I guess, it makes me work harder for wanting my job. I have to be the highest caliber of fighter to belong. I feel like they are, I don't know, with some of the cuts that they're making lately, I feel like they are trying to get to that. It was this last week, I just saw Montana De La Rosa got cut after her opponent missed weight like a couple weeks ago, which I was like, and it's coming off of a win against Andrea Lee, who was also recently cut. But off of the win against Andrea Lee, then she was supposed to fight, I think 3 weeks ago. And her opponent missed weight. That I tried to research it to see by how much, and they weren't even showing how much she missed by. And then Montana didn't fight, and apparently they've released that she got cut. So I'm like, making cuts like that, even I'm like,
I can't. I'm trying to find it. It just says Carolina withdrew due to weight cut complications. So I wonder if maybe they tried to get her to still take the fight and she said no.
I'm not sure. My thought behind that is that if that was the case, wouldn't they show the weight on the scale? If she saw the weight and then said no, I would understand that. But it's like they didn't even disclose
get that
the
far.
weight. Yeah.
Unless it was like an issue behind the scenes, like we don't know all the ins and outs of like a guy like Mikhailov getting cut, who was dominant in the division. There were just talks of him being incredibly hard to work with. I don't know Montana. I don't want to, make any assumptions at all, but maybe they were already, communicating with her, hey, she's going to miss weight. And she's like, oh, well, then I'm not taking the fight. And they were like, oh, okay, well then bye. I don't know. I have no information, but that's wild. There was a guy that was on the Dirty Boxing show, which we'll definitely touch on as well later in the show. That was last night in Miami. Mike Breeden is an old teammate of ours. He got cut from the UFC off a knockout win, but he missed weight in at least 2 of his 4 UFC fights and then went 1-3 in the UFC. And even though he was definitely fighting for his job at the end of that, arguably huge knockout in a fight he was losing. Arguably they should have kept him maybe, but because he missed weight, they were like, sorry, we're not renewing you. So it's tough to keep your job, but to what you're saying, it should be tough to keep your job if you're going to have the best of the best in the best organization in this sport, like the NFL. It's incredibly hard to keep your job in the NFL, and that's what makes it so elite, No,
exactly. And like I said, as a fan, that's what I want to watch on TV. That's what I don't want to watch, these Apex cards that sometimes feel like regional fight level shows. It's just it's not as entertaining. I feel like there should be fight nights and pay-per-views, but they should all be of a higher caliber than what we're seeing right now. They're just overproducing right now. I think we said it on the podcast on Tuesday. When I got into the UFC 8 years ago, there was about 350 fighters. Now there's just under 700. And it's that's in less than 10 years, it's doubled. And I just think that's absolutely insane.
Yeah. And it's not like there's an infinite number of days they can do shows on. So they can't do enough shows to cater to the amount of fighters they have on the roster, which is why you have so many lightweights sitting around like Grant going, well, when do I get to fight? Because they are trying to mix it up. They're not trying to have 5 lightweight fights on a card, but maybe they should. There's not a whole lot of bad lightweight fights. I got to be honest. Even outside the rankings, they're all pretty solid. Maybe we should have 5 lightweight fights on every card.
Yeah, I think they have like over 100 lightweights in the UFC. So I'm like, you could have card after card after card of just lightweights.
Yeah, people arguing in the comments about Bannon. Um, maybe no, and I think this is a good. Yeah, she had some knockouts on the regional scene in Europe. Like she was very highly touted as a prospect. And hello, aw, mom, pay attention. Maybe the UFC is too high level, and I do think we see this sometimes where we see people get like lots of big finishes on the regional scene, and then when they make that jump to the highest level of the sport, they don't have finishes anymore, but they can still be competitive there. So I think this is we'll see. We'll see if Shauna Bannon can continue to rise skill wise, or because she has a good record. So it's like, do you cut a 7-1 girl coming off of a finish just because you feel like she's not quite there yet, or do you see if the cute puppy
Brought the peace back to the comments.
right? Thank
Just
you.
all we
Thanks,
needed was
God.
a dog.
That's all we needed was puppies. Oh, this was nuts. Do you watch wrestling?
I didn't. I saw that like headline on Instagram. I didn't see it though.
It was like right at the end of the third period. You had what's his name? I lost it. Wyatt Hutchinson. It's gone. That might not be his last name, but he beats Gable Stevenson, who's a monster in wrestling. Like, a lot of people were saying, like, hey, maybe Stevenson took too many side quests over the last like couple years, trying out MMA, trying out these other sports, and gave these other heavyweights like time to close the gap, but like is down 4-2 in the last like 15 seconds, scores 3. Like, just what a story. Like, I love an underdog story like that. So it was really cool. It was a very cool upset.
I was just gonna say, there's nothing better than a good underdog story.
And honestly, dude, this last weekend, other than the main event, it was like a night for the. Thank you. I wasn't even close. Wyatt Hendrickson. I went back and watched the match, but I don't follow wrestling enough to know who people are, to be honest. I know Gable Stevenson because everybody knows Gable Stevenson. But yeah, congrats to Wyatt Hendrickson. Thank you, Ryan, for knowing people's names. But yeah, it was a lot of the underdogs were killing it. Chris Duncan was a huge dog. And I told everybody that was stupid on Tuesday because that's my boy. Love Chris Duncan. He trains with Grant. He's helped me a ton with my front headlock. Like, just watching him, but then like asking him like questions about his darts, about his anaconda, the way he sets up just his entire system on the front head really is a thing of beauty. Like, it's really awesome.
Honestly, even when he had it, the angle that he had the guillotine and how he was against the cage, I was like, oh, he doesn't have that. He's going to lose position. I did not see him getting the finish on that. Usually you see their head underneath the person's body and they're kind of angled like towards them more, where looked like he was crunched up against the cage. And did not expect the finish. Even he said, don't be silly, pull the gilly.
He said he's going to get it tatted on his butt cheek. So.
Well then.
He's crazy.
Even just like the sequence that led up to that, I think he threw a kick, got it caught, started throwing punches over it, and then got shot on it and then jumped the gilly. So I'm like, it was just a crazy sequence as a whole, a crazy fight as a whole, just constantly on the attack. And like I said, one of the few fights that really had me entertained last night.
Yeah, no, it was super fun to watch. And Chris Duncan, he is, don't want to say stressful, but if you're friends with Chris Duncan, he is a very nerve-wracking fighter to watch, but that's because he's so exciting. Like, he is so willing to be in the fight. And it's like, that's what makes him so fun. But yeah, I'm like, my heart is always racing every time Chris wins. I'm like, yes, you got this. You got this. It's like a roller coaster of emotions. But he, if he didn't get the finish off his back or what, I honestly don't know. I was surprised to see Vucenic shoot on him because I think Chris might have been more powerful on the feet, but I feel like Vucenic was sharper. So maybe it was just the fear, like he got dropped with that big, like cool kick punch right at the beginning of the fight. Maybe he was just like, he felt the power from Chris and he was like, I would much rather be on top of this guy, which I totally get. You can't punch me. Like, everybody's the same height and has the same amount of power if they're on their back. So I'm all for that. But yeah, I felt like he looked sharper on the feet and he was having good moments on the feet. So I was kind of surprised to see him shoot personally, especially after fighting out of the front headlock in the first round. But
so I went to the UFC's page this morning, and they didn't post any fight of the nights, but they post four performance bonuses, and Chris didn't get one of them, and I was shocked by that. So I don't know if I don't know if I couldn't find it. Usually they do a fight of the night at least, and then a couple of performance bonuses. Yeah, they had 4 performance bonuses, and then I couldn't see a fight of the night. But I know Sean Brady, Alexis, Shauna Bannon, and
really,
I can't remember the 4th one now. But those 3 I remember.
I got one, and Chris didn't.
Yeah,
bums me out.
Yeah, the Bannon one I was definitely shocked by.
Like, because that was more the other girl than Shauna, to be honest. I don't want to take anything away from her. Good for her, like, fighting out of a bad position and having the, like, wherewithal to set that up. But I feel like the finish came more from the girls' poor decision making.
The 4th one was Kevin Holland.
Oh.
Another kind of, where I'm like, Duncan didn't deserve that more?
Come on. Yeah. Like, yeah, that's a weird one for me. Maybe it's just because he was not expected to be able to out grapple Nelson, but like, yes, it's hard, Ryan, but it's like, but the overall performance, like Chris's overall performance was a much more exciting fight and way more dominant too. Like he wasn't losing and then got the finish, you know? I don't know.
And it should be hard. That fight, it was not hard. That fight, it looked too easy to do, honestly.
That's a fair point. Yeah, that should be. Yeah, I agree now. Thanks, Ryan. Yeah, Kevin Holland. That's odd. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, this was kind of weird. Sean, I'm sorry you brought this up last night, and I didn't put it up on the screen. So, Vucenic is now 0-2, I think, in the UFC. Does he have a win in the UFC yet, or is he 1-2? I'll pull it up. Anyway, Garam Kudailadze, who also beat Jordan Vucenic, was the very first fight on the early prelims, and Jordan Vucenic was on the main card. It's because Vucenic is very big in the UK. That's why they did that like that, but it's still kind of funny. I got
even performance-wise, though, I feel like it deserved to be like that just on how
exciting the fight.
Yeah, the excitement in the fight. The first fight was another one of those fights where it's like not much was going on the whole fight.
No, he's 0-2 in the UFC. So he lost a decision to Garam, and then obviously got guillotined by. I don't think has he ever been finished? I don't think he has. So Chris Duncan, the first guy to finish Jordan Vucenic. So he's 0-2 in the UFC. So how Kavanaugh, honestly, this probably would have been fight of the night if I had to give one out, but I'm honestly okay with them only giving out performance of the night bonuses for this card. There really wasn't like a standout fight of the night, because even this fight, which I will give, like, it was an exciting fight, I think was, it was still a slow starter,
Mm-hmm. No, the first round was very slow of that fight. It wasn't until the second and third I started getting impressed. But of the first round, I was like, is this just the pace for the whole night?
Yeah, I agree. And usually the flyweights are pretty like quick, There's a lot of fun flyweight fights. I think they don't get the credit they deserve because there's not as many finishes, but they're fun usually because they're just so fast paced, and they have to be to keep up with everybody else in the division who's also super fast. But I'm excited to see Kavanaugh fight again. I think that he will be in a lot of really exciting fights. I do. But yeah, it was just a weird night to give out a fight of the night, to be honest. I'm so bummed Chris didn't get 50K. Kevin Holland doesn't need 50K. He fights every 2 months. He makes stupid money. Get out of here. That's a bummer. But anywho, this was a funny comment. Does Mike Brown need an interpreter when coaching Chris? Dude, I have to say, Grant and I were watching the press conference, and like Chris had just been in the US like a week prior, and he was way easier to understand than he was at the press conference. I think just like a week back in the UK made his Scottish accent come out a little bit thicker, because it definitely was stronger than it was the week prior.
Yeah, with the Kevin Holland fight, I do think he had a good performance. Was it a fight of the performance of the night? I don't think so. Was it I think honestly for me it was the first time I really looked at Gunnar and was like, oh, he's looking old. That being said, he still is a grappling phenom, was still almost able to finish it in the third round, but he just looked like he was a little bit slower out there. He just looked old out there.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I wonder how much of that has to do with Kevin Holland and just how long and athletic he is for 170. Because we've really only seen him get out wrestled at middleweight when the guys are a lot bigger. And I don't think it's because Kevin Holland's grappling is so good. I think it's his physical attributes as well. Like, not to take anything away from Holland, he fought him well, but like he's so long. He's so hard. It's so hard to get in on the legs and like lift and get people that are that long and athletic down. And then he did such a good job just like mitigating damage on the ground, tying him up. Like, there were a few points Gunnar was like, oh, screw this. I'm just going to try and TKO you on my feet. And he actually landed some really good shots. And I think if he had done that more, I think he could have gotten Kevin Holland out of there, because he should have had that arm triangle. The cage was the only thing stopping him, because he has a killer arm triangle.
You know, honestly, like, this was the fight that I was looking forward to the most. I'm just always such a huge Gunnar fan because of his jiu-jitsu. It's just always something beautiful to watch. And Kevin was just kind of able to like nullify a lot of it by just constantly being on the attack while he was on the bottom. He was just like kept on shifting his hips, going for different submissions, throwing up strikes, just making it difficult for him. And that's where I guess maybe old isn't the word, but maybe outdated is what I was thinking with Gunnar, is where it's like Kevin was bringing an MMA fight that looked like it was just giving him too many dilemmas.
No, I don't disagree. Like, he was throwing up everything, throwing up the kitchen sink at him. And honestly, like, even when Gunnar was spending most of the round on top, this is a crazy reach difference for the same weight class. Like, honestly, 81 to 72 inch reach, like, that's a big advantage. Almost 10 inches. Or sorry, almost 10 inches. But yeah, like, I feel like when Gunnar was on top, I lost my train of thought. It's gone. I'm sorry. Flew away. It'll come back. Oh, this was sick though. He picked him up in the omoplata.
Yeah.
But sorry. Gunnar is solid when he has back control. Oh, like when he was on top too, Holland was doing more damage off his back than Gunnar was doing on top for most of the round. Like, I was watching, I was like, wow, Kevin Holland's winning off his back. And I never say that about anybody, because in my opinion, you're almost never, like, there's like a 2% chance that you're winning if you're off on your back, you know, like, unless you have a deep submission. And like, we kind of saw it with was it the Wood fight? Yeah. I feel like Wood, like, he spent most of the first round on his back after he dropped Share. And I was just like, I was really disappointed that he didn't work to get up. Because it was like, I don't like that, like, oh, I'm just going for subs off my back and I'm not using those subs to get up. And I felt like nothing was deep, you know, like, he had a couple submission attempts, but if you know jiu-jitsu, you know that neither of them were even close to being like in, you know?
Well, and that's where I guess it throws me back to like when we were talking about the Bannon and Puja fight. I'm like, if you drop somebody and you're not necessarily the most well-rounded on the ground, maybe don't run into, like, because he ran into a top half guard, tried to attack a guillotine and then got swept off of it instantly and then spent the rest of the round on bottom. So it's like, if you're not like well equipped there, don't run into the guard. Make somebody stand up and fight with you. If you just drop them, like, just, you have to have a higher fight IQ than that.
No, I definitely don't disagree with that. I would love to see some more fight IQ. Yes, Greg, we did. You'll have to go back to the beginning. We've touched on it several times, but we definitely covered it. That has been the like number one question today, is if we're going to talk about that fight. But it's been 35 minutes. We haven't even talked about gets KO, gets R-barred. Yep, essentially. We haven't even talked about the main event yet. I'll be honest, I think we can kind of skip over the co-main event. I had Jan Blachowicz winning, but it was so slow and uneventful that I can't be mad either way. You kind of said the same thing when we were texting yesterday. Well, that's all I'll say about the co-main.
Yeah, it looks like right before the fight, they were like, all right, who can throw a leg kick harder? And they wanted to see who could drop each other with a leg kick. And I've seen that like 100 times at parties. You know, you get a couple MMA fighters together drinking, they're just throwing leg kicks trying to drop each other. Like, I feel like that's what that fight looked like to me. Is like both of them just leg kick after leg kick, like just trading back and forth. And it was just like very uneventful fight.
I agree. Sean, I got to be honest. I think 5 rounds would have helped Jan, maybe, but there's no way I wanted to see 2 more rounds of that fight. That's a no from me. Sorry. I feel like Jan is a slow starter. I did think he won. Okay, well, I said we wouldn't talk about this fight that much, so we're not going to. We're going to talk about the main event because that is why we are here, because this was Sean Brady's moment. This was Sean Brady's weekend. And I said this on the post-fight show last night, right before the fight happened. Grant's like, all right, who do you have? And I was like, earlier this week, I was like 51% Leon, but I was like, I don't know. It's a coin toss. And Grant's like, it's a coin toss, but I think whoever loses is going to be exposed. And I think that was the perfect prediction because Sean Brady absolutely exposed Leon Edwards here. I think he broke him. I think he fought him so beautifully. Like just the pressure he brought was Bilal-esque, but way more exciting in my opinion. And so Dave called him the uncrowned king of the welterweight division last night. And I'm really excited to see them give him a title shot or maybe a Buckley or somebody really exciting like that. Your just full take on Sean Brady over last night.
Well, I just have one question for Leon, and it's like, what prompted that shot in the 3rd round?
And I feel like my only answer is like he was just mentally broken at that point. You know, there are different forms of quitting. And I think he just was done being in that fight at that moment is all I can really say, you know?
I think you could see it in his like body language, like in his stature. And there's something about him. You could see that he was slowly fading as the fight just continued to not go his way. And obviously it ended the round after that in the 4th. But I'm like, I just felt like on the feet, Leon looked super fast. He looked clean.
He did.
He everything, even like the shots he was landing the harder shots, typically speaking. Brady was coming in more with flurries. He didn't look as fast, but was closing the distance with them very well, getting to his takedowns clean. And yeah, I think that Brady just really overwhelmed him more than anything else. When Leon was able to keep his distance, I feel like if he was able to keep his distance the whole fight, he won the fight, you know, but it was just Brady stayed in his face, constantly made him thinking, constantly gave him something to think about, whether it was strike, shooting, whatever it was. And then on the ground, he was just like a wet blanket laying on top of him, could not get off. Like Leon could not get him off.
Dude, that dude has literally a turtle shell for a back. Like he looks massive and so insanely strong. And it's obviously it's heavy technique as well, but just like when he gets on top, like he just looks like an absolute monster there. And I did expect him to be able to hold Leon down if he got him down, but I expected this to be a much closer fight. I thought Leon would do a way better job keeping his range, but Brady had just such relentless pressure and he didn't allow Leon to start to make his reads, because that's where Leon shines. And I agree with you. Like somebody said he outstruck Leon, and I don't disagree with this, but if we just look shot for shot, Leon's shots were cleaner. And I do think they were more damaging. He just didn't do enough of them because Brady did such a good job keeping him on the back foot.
Yeah. And I guess I kind of did see the fight going this way. I didn't know if he'd be able to get the finish or not, but I see Brady as, I guess, a more a grappler with more finishing capability than Bilal necessarily. Yeah. So I felt like if he was able to get to the ground, then he would be able to dominate and control. And he just moves better than Bilal on the ground, where Bilal is good at controlling position.
Bilal's like the mat return king, and Brady is the control king, is how I kind of see it. Like Bilal can ride like insanely well, but he doesn't keep you on the ground long enough to implement the damage and the submission prowess that Brady has, you know? But dude, and how nuts is it that Sean Brady is Bilal's like only finish ever?
I know. I'm like, it's just the rematch that needs to happen.
no. How do you see that fight going? Like, do you have a pick or like a prediction for because obviously I think we can respect that that's a close fight, right?
No, it's definitely a close fight. And I don't know. I might need to go back and rewatch the first one, honestly. I think that Brady has evolved himself as a fighter since then. And I think, I don't know. I honestly think it'll be closer on the ground when they get it to the ground, but I still think Brady would dominate when he gets to the ground with Bilal. And I think Bilal might have a little bit more of the edge on the feet still.
I think he would. I think he will have to work really hard to get Bilal down. But dude, he just looks so strong. Brady does. And honestly, I think I like him against a striker like Gary. Shavkat, I think, is a little bit more dangerous just because of the power and how good his counter, because he can wrestle. He can counter wrestle and he can wrestle offensively. I think Shavkat is a tough matchup for Brady stylistically, but I really want to see that fight now because I think just him showing his evolution, how much better his striking defense looked in this fight, how much better his pressure looked in his volume output. And everybody says he's a cardio monster in the gym. So, dude, yeah.
Comment here. Dean coaching his people could possibly have multiple champs coming up next year. I think so.
I could see Brady in a title contention spot really soon. And I guess the question is there's supposedly, Dave said, breaking news last night, he heard from somebody in Islam's camp that Islam is not fighting at lightweight again. He is going up to 170. So Islam, the king of lightweight right now, if Ilya gets an immediate title shot at 55, Islam has to get an immediate title shot at 70, right? He's not fighting for anything that's not the belt at 170. So if that's the case, we have Bilal fighting JDM. After that fight happens, Shavkat says he'll be healthy in June, July. So now we have a bajillion contenders in this division that used to be quite stale,
And then, I'm thinking about the lightweight division too. I'm like, who's the title? It would be Topuria versus somebody. I'm assuming they would make
for interim.
Well, if Islam goes up though, then it'd be open belt.
Yeah, no, it'll be. Sorry, not interim. I'm sorry, vacant is what I meant to say.
Yeah. Max,
I don't think so. That doesn't make as much sense.
No. I don't think so. Maybe a Gaethje?
Yeah, maybe.
That's a fight that I just want to see, honestly.
Topuria and Gaethje?
I think
that's one of the better matchups for Topuria at 155, to be honest.
No, I think so too. Unless they want, I don't know, Dustin's retirement fight.
Yeah, maybe give him one more shot at the belt. That'd be cool. That would be cool if he got one more chance. I think at this point, Dustin's all about he just wants big fights. He wants big fights that excite the fans because that's why he's so beloved by the fan base. Mm-hmm. But dude, Justin can eat a left hook from Ilya. Maybe Max couldn't. I don't know. I think Ilya can put Gaethje away, and I don't expect Gaethje to be able to get him down.
I see that as an entertaining fight, but I definitely see it going Topuria's way. But it's also, I don't know how much of the size difference does make a difference. I remember Edson, whenever he dropped down, he was saying how much easier it is to drop guys at 45 versus 55. Maybe the size difference, he won't be able to drop them as easy. He won't have that size advantage or whatever it is. These guys are bigger, so we might see something different.
No, I agree. I think lightweight's a tough place for Ilya. You have a lot more really good grapplers, and you have a lot of really big guys. The way Moicano, Chris Duncan, Grant Dawson cut weight is more the rule than the exception. Some of these guys are big, and they cut a lot of weight. So it's I think it's very interesting to see how Ilya will do. But Gaethje had trouble wrestling on Fiziev, who is talking about going down to 145, looked very small and is very short. So I think he would struggle to wrestle on Ilya, who I consider his wrestling higher level than Fiziev's. So this is pretty much just a head-to-head striking match, in my opinion. Gaethje trying to annihilate Ilya's calf before he gets knocked out is kind of how I see it going. But so I would love to see that. That I know size isn't everything, but did you see how small Ilya was compared to it? Yeah, I don't think he's that big. I am still like kind of in shock that this is what he's deciding to do.
When I saw him fight Max, I just thought Max looked like the obviously much larger fighter. It just looked like they were already in two separate weight classes. So for him to be going up and like, and the coach is saying that he's like 180 and everybody's saying this, I'm like, I just don't see it. I'm like, where is he keeping it?
I think he's trying to like go legend status, but without like, I think he would have been more legendary if he had beaten Diego. Imagine if he beat Movsar. Like the dude's what, like 18, 19 and 0? Like imagine if he beat him. Like that's legendary to me rather than going up. It's just the division doesn't need him, you know? Like the division, if we're honest, the division doesn't even need Islam. There is a wealth of contenders at lightweight. There are guys that aren't even in the rankings yet that are going to probably be in title contention at some point. It's such a deep division. 45 kind of needed Ilya, I think, as the superstar. Just my thoughts. Ilya does look like he's 180. I'm with you. Anyway, we won't waste too much time out. We have one more specific topic from UFC London that everybody was freaking out about yesterday. You guys were in the comment section on the post-fight show. Dave lost his mind because Dakota Ditcheva went to UFC London. Just went to watch the fights and was sitting in the fighter section. She was sitting behind Patty Pimblett. So I saw this screenshot everywhere and people are like losing their minds. So it's, I don't know. I don't know why people are losing their minds. You respond to what I'm going to say. This was my 2 cents from it. Obviously I'm friends with Dakota. So I haven't heard anything about her getting signed to the UFC yet. We know we know they want her. We know they've tried to get her. We know the PFL is not willing to let her go yet. And we know she's not in the tournament. That's about it. Do I think that Dakota will fight in the UFC next? Probably. It's not going to be this year, though, if it is. If the PFL has nothing for Dakota this year, they're still probably going to keep a hold of her, is my 2 cents on this. But, like, everybody was freaking out. Like, guys, she's super famous. She lives in the UK, and she went home to visit. And she has a good management team. Of course she was at the fights. Like, she goes to big soccer games over there all the time. That doesn't mean she's going to be signed to one of to Manchester City or United, whatever her team is. I forget which one's which. But are you reading into this as much as everybody else? Or is Dave off his rocker here?
No, I think everybody's definitely reading into it a lot more than probably what's going on. It does make me wonder, though, just like if the PFL is keeping people in contracts, I guess specifically to keep them away from the UFC. Like, I just feel like I'm seeing a lot of PFL fighters being very unhappy right now, begging for releases, things like that. And it's just like, I don't know what's going on there. If she is with them, why isn't she in the tournament? Why isn't she like have something, like,
I don't know. This, I think it's good for her that she's not in the tournament. Obviously, she'll have an inactive year, or at least a less active year, because she might only get 1 or 2 fights if they find her somebody to fight at all. But I know the way the PFL tournament structure, like the contracts are structured for the tournament, is if you win the tournament, you're automatically renewed for the next year. So at the very least, maybe she will have some level of free agency at the end of this year to be able to make some choices about what she wants to do next. What did Dakota think the reaction would be? She just wanted to go to the fights. I told her this morning, she goes, yeah, dude, people are losing their minds. But I think it depends. PFL, they're definitely not, most of them are not per fight. But I think the way they usually structure them is like, okay, they sign you for the tournament season. And then if you win, you automatically are renewed for another year with the PFL, not necessarily for the tournament. But the tournament is also totally different than it was last year. It's not even the same tournament. It's $500,000 instead of $1 million. So, but none of the champs are really in the tournament. they're like, we're going to have like a champ card. It's like, okay, but if you put all the rest of the really good fighters in the tournament, who's going to fight the champs? Are you going to make them wait till the season's over? Like they're not going to fight until the end of the year? Like that doesn't make sense either. So I am very interested to see what their plan is. The UFC is foreshadowing. Guys, don't get me wrong. I think we're going to see Dakota in the UFC eventually. I wouldn't be surprised. I just don't think it's going to be as soon as everybody thinks just because she was at the fights. That's all I'm saying.
I don't, when it comes to PFL or GFL, I don't know anything that's going on anymore. I feel like there's just so many different, I don't know, just so many things that they just don't seem to have direction.
I agree. And it's not, the PFL takes great care of Fight Bananas. I'm going to be there next month. I love going to their shows. And so I want them to continue. I think it is bad for MMA if we lose the PFL. Fighters need more options to make money outside of the UFC. If the UFC is the only thing out there, that is bad for the sport. That is not what we want as fighters.
I don't know.
The NFL is the best, right? But that doesn't mean that there aren't Canadian leagues and arena football leagues where guys can still go make some money if they can't quite get there, you know? And I think it also less people will fight on regional shows. It's like if you get past like the point where, no, I don't think so. I think Dakota beats everybody, guys. I think she knocks everybody stupid. But and I love Weili Zhang. We are very high on Weili Zhang here. I think that if there's less places to go in the sport where you can make money, more people will choose other routes and other career paths. And I think regional MMA will start to die too. If it's the only place you can go that you can make a living is the UFC, I don't think that's good for the sport personally.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that it's kind of like what we were talking about earlier. It's like then it makes it so all the elite are in one place. All the best of the best are in one place. So it's not Dakota's stuck in PFL while all the other best 125 in the world are in the UFC. So I feel like it would just be better for the sport as one is fans, obviously. But I'm like, as a whole, I just think having like the elite of the elite in one place.
Yeah. And from a fan perspective, I think that's good initially. I just think over time, I think they're going to have a hard time finding new, like young talent. It's the same thing with regional MMA. If everybody starts going to dirty boxing and karate combat because they can't find fights on regional MMA, where's the UFC going to find new prospects? Where are they going to sign their young guys from? You know,
we've talked about it before, obviously, with the contender series, the year-long contender series, something like that, you know, like
what we need.
I know, just we got to write the UFC. You know, we've got all of the ideas. We've got it put together for them. We just got to let them know.
You have the contact, G. You got to get us a meeting. Like, get Hunter to come on the Sunday Morning Brew one week with us. Dakota is not a strawweight; she's a flyweight. But Weili Zhang has talked about going up to try and achieve double champ status. But they say supposedly they're not letting anybody do that anymore. You have to vacate if you want to go up. So maybe she won't do that. I don't know. I would still kind of like to see her try. But I'd love for her to stay at PFL. But yeah, there's just, if there was any matchup that made sense for her, I would be with you, Sydney. Like, she's getting paid well. It's a great team. The people who work for PFL are awesome people. I'd love to see her get more opportunities there, but I just don't think, unless Rose decides she wants to be done with the UFC and go over there, like, which I can't see happening, like, how are they going to find somebody for her to fight this year, you know?
No, I just think currently, especially in women's divisions more than anything else, all the best fighters in the world are in the UFC. And it's like, if you want to prove yourself as one of the best, that's where you have to be.
I agree. And I think we'll see it eventually. I really do, guys. It'll happen just in time. All right. Last thing we're going to talk about, and then I'll let Gillian leave so she's not talking to me for an hour and a half. Let's look at, we talked about Sean Brady. We talked about how dominant he looked. The welterweight division looks fun. Like, it actually looks fun right now. There's so many contenders. If we look at the top 8, so this was another thing that I kind of got in on Dave on. Dave said that Leon Edwards gets smashed, not beaten, gets absolutely annihilated by every single person in the top 8. And I personally am not ready to write off Leon Edwards as trash at this point. So I was like, come on, calm down, Dave. Calm down, Dave. But let's look at this top, 8 to 10 and kind of see, like, I think Leon can still be, I actually would like to see him fight Jeff Neal. Obviously, that's not going to happen for quite some time. Jeff Neal's down at number 10. Doesn't really make sense right now, but I think Leon can beat Jeff Neal. He's already beaten Colby. I think he can beat Gilbert Burns. I think Gary is a tough-ish fight, but I think stylistically, Leon Edwards is not a terrible matchup, or is not a like super easy matchup for Ian Gary either. I think Buckley's a really tough fight for Leon. Obviously, Brady smashed him. I think Jack Della Maddalena is a fun fight for Leon. Usman is also, I don't think we need to make Leon versus Usman. It doesn't really make sense. They're both kind of becoming journeymen in the top of this division. And then Shavkat's obviously a tough fight for everybody. But like, your thoughts, what do we do with Leon after this? Where does Islam fit into this top 10? And what do we do with Brady after this?
I would like to see the Edwards and Gary. I think that would be instantly, looking at this lineup, that was the one that stuck out of the page for me. I feel like that'd be an interesting matchup. My only thoughts is that I think that Gary might make it a boring fight. He might just try to wrestle and hold him. And instead of, I think as a striking match, though, it'd be entertaining. Yeah. But I feel like that'd be my only worry, I guess, of it. Other than that, you said it too, Della Maddalena. I think that would be a fun striking match too. I feel like any grappler, like you said with what Grant said, he got exposed last night. Any grappler is going to go in there and just
try to do the same thing, right?
Run the same game plan. So I feel like putting him against somebody who is going to strike with him is going to be, I guess, the more exciting matchup, where anything else you're going to see him getting held a lot.
I don't disagree. And I got to be honest, I think very highly of Brady's wrestling and control. And I'm not sure that other guys in this division can do exactly what Brady and Bilal did to Leon. I think we have, I look back at I know he's older now, but I look back at the RDA Leon fight where RDA would get so super deep in on a shot and Leon Edwards would just athlete out of them. Mm-hmm. And I think he still has a lot of that capability. He's still, like you said, he still looks fast when he's fighting. I just think the style that Brady brought with the pressure was too much. And I don't expect Gary to fight him like that. Mm-hmm. I don't, like you said, I think he can make it a really boring fight on the feet too. Like Gary is a very like similar to Leon, makes his reads, like he takes his time on the feet too. And so I could see, I don't see a lot of people doing exactly what Brady did to him. I could see some people trying for sure, but I think there's some people he can still stop the shot against, just like he did with, I know not the best version of Colby, but he was stopping a lot of what Colby was doing for the first few rounds, But the way this division is set up right now, we have Bilal fighting Jack Della Maddalena. JDM maybe loses, maybe you could do him and Leon, but I kind of like using Usman and Leon as these stepping stones for all these young prospects. There's been talk about doing Buckley and Usman. I'd really like to see that. I think that makes a lot of sense. So let's say Buckley and Usman are set. I know they're not, but let's just pretend. Jack is already set with Bilal. Then you have Shavkat out for injury. I don't hate, everybody else in the top 5 is kind of tied up. Leon and Gary makes sense. Gary needs a fight. He's coming off a close decision loss to Shavkat, who's arguably the boogeyman of that division. So I don't hate it. I'm with you. I'd like to see that fight maybe happen. And then he becomes a stepping stone for Gary possibly, or he shuts him down and Gary doesn't get that shot. Mm-hmm. But I think it's interesting.
It's like you were saying. It's like you were saying with Edwards and with Usman, they are just kind of journeymen of the top 5 right now. They're probably not making another title run, where they become the stepping stones now for these younger guys who are coming up. So I think that is where you have to look at the Buckleys and the Garys and the guys who maybe are getting their way up to that top 5 spot, and this will be their opportunity to prove themselves.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree. And I obviously expect to see Brady higher in the rankings after this weekend. But the question is, do they stick him at number 1 or do they put him under Shavkat? So it's like, I don't know what they plan to do with him and where they plan to move.
Forgot about this fight coming up too. They put Leon versus the winner of Neil Protz. Protz is going to be up in that top soon too. I'm like,
very soon.
He's someone that's you got to watch.
Yeah, I don't hate that. Like I could see that as well. Maybe you do that. It's weird to see him, but I know he'll fall pretty far after this. I would assume maybe they'll put him at like 4 or 5. So if I don't know, see that's the thing is I don't know how the rankings will go because journalists are fickle.
Because nobody knows how the rankings go.
No, they don't. The journalists don't even that do it don't even know. So if he's closer to that number 10 spot, I could see that making sense, you know? Mm-hmm. But like, what do you do with Brady now? I feel like he's almost in kind of a tight spot, especially if Islam comes up. Like if Islam comes up, do you agree he deserves the immediate title shot?
I don't think so, but yeah, he will get it. I don't think like if you're moving up a division, you deserve the immediate title shot, even if you are the champ. I don't think so. I think like you need to prove yourself in like I said, everything's different moving up a division, down a division. You could feel better, you could feel worse. Like you could be a completely different fighter moving to a different division. So I think you need to prove yourself in that division. Like he deserves to get anybody in the top 5. Give him Brady.
No, I agree.
He deserves to get anybody in the top 5. He needs to prove himself at that weight class and then gets the champ. But I think he needs somebody up there first.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't hate to see that. If you were going to stick Islam into the rankings right now, where would you put him?
Gosh, that's hard to say because I'm like, obviously I do. I think he can. I think he could be champion of this division, but I'm like, right now, I don't think he deserves that, I guess, opportunity just yet. Even honestly, versus Shavkat would be a good fight too. I'd like to see that.
You'd stick him at like number 2, maybe?
Yeah, around there.
All right. No, I can see that. So yeah, like what do you do with Brady next? So let's say you're right and Islam gets an immediate title shot. You have Bilal versus JDM. Obviously, like I don't think if Bilal loses, he gets the immediate title shot, just like they didn't do for Leon. I don't expect them to do that. I don't think he is the UFC's favorite champion. So let's say he wins or loses regardless. It's going to be a different fight after that. If Islam gets that immediate shot or Shavkat gets that immediate shot, because they both are deserving in the UFC's eyes, right? Where does that leave Brady? Would you give him one more contendership fight or would you put him on ice and wait for 2, maybe 3 fights before he fights for the title?
I guess that I feel like depends more to the fighter than anything else. As a fighter, I think you should be willing to defend it. You should be willing to go out there and show that you're going to be the champ. So it doesn't matter who you fight in the division. Like you're the best in the world, so you can beat the top 5. It doesn't matter. But if some fighters want to play it safe, they're going to keep their spot and wait for their opportunity. Because I think a win over Leon does give him that kind of, I guess, like right to that spot. Right. But like as a fighter, do you want to sit on the sidelines for a year and a half? Like it just, I feel like depends what he wants as a fighter more than anything else.
And I think a lot of people want to see new blood in the captain's chair, in the champ spot, so to speak. Shavkat needs to be Bilal, not the most exciting. I think Merab is very exciting personally, but that's a style of fight I like to watch. But I will say this. I think if this is how it plays out, if Islam gets tossed into that title contention, we have Shavkat becoming healthy sometime this summer, ready to fight sometime this summer, then maybe you do Buckley versus Usman, and the winner of that fight fights Brady. And that's the next title contender, you know? That makes sense to me. I think that's where you have to go.
Looking at the next move for this.
And I'm excited to see it. Like, I feel like this division has been a little stale in the past. So it's always fun to see a division get so many contenders at once like this. And I think once some of these guys at lightweight retire, I think we'll see a similar story at lightweight. I think we'll see some really exciting new guys into the rankings. What if Bilal just starts finishing people now? I mean, that would be cool. I'd love to see it. I don't find Bilal super boring. I really like his pressure. I like his pressure style. I know he is not a big finisher, but there's definitely more boring fighters than Bilal, in my opinion. All right. It has been. Do you have anything else to add, Gillian, before I wrap us up? It's been a long time.
Just shout out to CJ Brandt. He's one of my teammates. He stepped up on 4 days' notice, fought on Dirty Boxing last night, got a KO in the first round. The beautiful performance. So just shout out there.
Oh, we didn't talk about Dirty Boxing. You said Yoel Romero and Andre Arlovsky's, two legends of the sport, both got TKOs last night, right?
Correct.
So
yeah.
it was it's a cool new show out there. We can't talk about it. We'll be here forever. I'm sorry, guys. We'll talk about it on Tuesday, maybe. But it's been an hour and 6 minutes. So we are out of here. It is Sunday. I'm going to go clean my house. Gillian and I will be back on Tuesday with the live show from 1 to 3 p.m. Eastern. And we have lots of fighter interviews coming your way this week, too, that are getting scheduled. So we will see y'all later.